Okay, so this is a virtual lab for forest protection. We've been talking about fire. Fire is a disturbance in the forest, and we've talked about history of fire policy in the United States and just fire occurrence in the United States. We talked about the difference between wildfires and prescribed fires, and we talked about the uses of prescribed fire, restoration, silviculture, and fuels management. And so I want to dive into fuels management a little bit deeper. So I'm going to go over two ways that we quantify fuels in the woods, and go over those kind of more in details. And then there's a third way, which I will briefly mention, and I'll talk about in the lecture as well. So the first method that we're going to talk about is what's called Brown's transects, or the planar intercept method. And so this was developed in the western United States by a Forest Service employee named James Brown. And basically the idea is you have a transect and you count different size fuels along that transect, along different sections of that transect. So if you remember, we have our fuels broken up into size classes. We have 1 hour fuels, which is 0 to 1/4 inch in diameter. 10 hour fuels, which is 1 inch to 3 inches. Hold on, let me back up with that. So a 1 hour fuel is 0 to 1/4 inch. 10 hour is 1/4 inch to 1 inch. 100 hour is 1 inch to 3 inches, and then anything over 3 inches is called a 1,000 hour fuel. And so what that hour refers to is the time it takes for that fuel, for the fuel moisture to get back to ambient temperature. So basically how readily available it is. So I've got here a data sheet that you would use to sample Brown's transects. Try my best to get it in here. So what we have is, pretty standard stuff: the date, plot number, the observer. Took the azimuth of this transect, and then the slope. I set this up a little bit further down the hill so it was 0. Now it's probably -5 or so, but you get the idea. And so what we've got for our tallies, we're doing a 50-foot transect. You can do a transect any length you want, but 50 feet is pretty standard. And so this data sheet is set up for that. So it says the first 6 feet, we're going to be tallying 1 hour fuels. And we're also going to be tallying 10 hour fuels and 100 hour fuels. So see, first 6, first 12. So from 6 to 12, that's when we're only going to tally 100 hour fuels. And then from 12 feet on, we're going to tally 1,000 hour fuels, or just 1,000 hour fuels. So remember, 1,000 hour are greater than 3 inches. And then at 12 feet, we're going to take a litter and duff measurement, and we're going to do the same thing at 25 feet and then at 40 feet. And then we're also going to take a height of down and dead woody material at 12 to 13 feet, 25 to 26 feet, and 40 to 41 feet. And so that the height of that down and dead woody material is, say you have a branch, a twig that's fallen, right around that 12-foot mark, and it's a rather large branch, and so one of the forks of the branch extends up, maybe 2 feet in the air. You would just measure that height. If you don't have anything there, then you don't tally anything there. And then for our 1,000 hours, we're going to record the diameter, the species. You can be as specific or as general with that. Typically I just do hardwood or softwood, and then a decay class. And the decay class go from 1 to 4, 1 being completely solid, freshly fallen, and 4 being completely rotten. And so what I typically do with that is I kick the 1,000 hour fuel. So if I can step all the way through that stick or that piece of wood, that's a 4. If I kick at it and I can scrape off bark with my foot, but I can't, step all the way through it, that's a 3. And then if I can kick it and it's getting soft, but I'm not really getting any bark off, but it's not freshly fallen. That's a 2 right there. Sorry, I got some ants on me. So that's kind of the dealio with that. So looking here in our wood, so this is my transect, and it's not perfect because I'm by myself, but ideally you would have either a partner holding this tight or a nail in the ground to keep that tight. But it's just me out here, so it's going to be a little loose. But all I'm looking for is basically twigs. I'm not going to count any leaves, and I'm not counting anything that's alive, or anything that has a root system. So kind of hard to see right here, but there is a twig right here. This is what I'm looking at, and so it crosses my intercept, so that's what I'm going to count. Okay, so if this twig was like this and it was parallel to my transect, I would not count that, but since it intersected my transect, I'm going to count it. So now to determine the diameter, you can use a regular ruler. That works just as good. There's also a tool called a go or no go gauge, and it's a pretty cool tool. I have one, and so this is what it looks like. So we've got slots on it. So the small slot here is for your 1 hour fuels. The next up slot is for your 10-hour fuels. Then this slot is for your 100-hour fuels, and then you've got a ruler here for your 1,000-hour fuels. It goes up to 1 to 4.5 inches. So I'm gonna take this stick. I think it's a 1 hour fuel, but I'm going to see if I can do this one-handed here. Sorry if it's a little wonky, but I'm just gonna slide this in there, and it is, let's see if I can tuck this in here in my shirt. Whoops. And show y'all how to measure it. So it's a little bit bigger than the 1 hour slot. So you know, I don't want to force it. So it's right there within the 10-hour slot. So that's a 10-hour fuel. So I would tally that 10-hour fuel. And again, remember the first 6 feet, we're tallying 1s, 10s, and 100s. So I would just go right there, and I'm gonna do dot tallies, just because sometimes, you know, you can get a lot of tallies. So to save space, dot tallies are efficient. And remember, our dot tallies are just dots that you put in a square. And so it'd be something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. So that'd be 4. And then you start connecting the dots: 5, 6, 7, 8 to make the square. So that'd be 8. And then, oops, sorry. For 9 and 10, you just make an X. And so that would be 10. So that's our first fuel. It is a 10-hour fuel. So I'm just gonna keep walking along the transect. I'm looking for fuels. And again, this is not perfect transect because it's not tight, but let's just assume it was. So here I am at 5 feet right here. Here's 6 feet. So nothing else crossed my transect, intersected with my transect. So that's all of that. So I'm gonna go ahead and close out this box and just put a 1 and circle it. I'm gonna put 0s here, 0 here, okay? And so now we're moving on. Well, let me rewind that, because we're still counting 12s. From 6 feet to 12 feet, we're still looking for 100 hours. So traveling along here, here's a 1 hour fuel right here. It intersects my transect, but I'm not interested in a 1 hour fuel. I'm only interested in 100-hour fuel. So keep going. There's 13 feet. So 12 feet is somewhere around here. Here's 11. I'm right at 12 feet right here. So I'm done tallying 1s, 10s, and 100s. The only thing from here on out that I'm interested in tallying is 1,000-hour fuels. So I'm just going to walk along the transect, and you know, 1,000-hour fuels, they're at least 3 inches. So they'll jump out at you And looks like, so this is up on the Morrow Forest. So people have definitely been up here camping. So let's just assume this is alive. This would be, let's see if this would be 1,000-hour fuel. So you want to measure it at its widest part. I just knocked off a chunk of it because it's burnt all the heck. So yeah, so that's 3.5 inches. That's 1,000-hour fuel. Now, okay, realistically, this piece of wood is already burnt, so it's not flammable anymore. I mean, it may get burned in a really hot fire, but it's basically burnt to a crisp right now. So, but just for the sake of the exercise, assuming that it was still alive, that would be, let me get a good lighting here. I apologize. Let me move this camera up. That's a little bit better, I think. It's kind of hard to do one person, so just bear with me. What I'm doing is put my diameter in there. Species, I'm just gonna go hardwood. I'm gonna give that a 4 decay class. Okay. And again, just assuming it was still, you know, it wasn't burnt to a crisp to begin with. You know, that's what I'm going for. So continue on looking for 1,000-hour fuels. Don't see any. And so here I am. I'm at 48 feet here. So I need to do my measurements, my litter and duff, and down dead and woody heights. So I need to back up to 40 feet. Here's 40 feet. So all I'm doing is